working group meeting for September 8th, 2020. We'll follow the agenda, which was tagged in the issue, which is issue number 2427. Before I do that, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if not, we'll move from the agenda. The first thing tagged is the onboarding for Build Infra members. I think, Rod, you'd opened that up, right?
Yes, but I didn't tag it, but yeah. I was just starting a list of things that we needed to cover during an onboarding for infra members. Yeah, it's complicated because it's like off the top of my head. So
right.
Got to bring to mind all the things that we would need to cover. So I hope that others have been adding to that one. I haven't actually looked.
Yeah, so I tagged it just for awareness, just in case we had more people on the call. But yeah, just to draw attention to it, I guess.
I wonder, is this like a blocker for starting to onboard people, or could we onboard people?
No,
and then
it's not.
Try and, because like to be honest, some of this stuff I haven't even looked at.
Yeah, it's not a blocker at all. I don't. The main thing that is a blocker, that's not really a blocker, is I just want to. I want the new members to understand that there are actually a lot of sensitive areas here, and that once you get access, don't just go trampling around these things. Just because there's relationships with donors, there's hardware and server setups that are not well documented, and we sort of just implicitly know what we're doing and what not to tread on. There's limits that we have with donor machines. There's all sorts of stuff that we have to be careful of. So that's the thing. Like, if you don't go trampling and you wait to understand some of these things, then it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if we should just set up like a half an hour or something with Richard and Mary to go through, just to give them that. Here's some of the things to be wary of, and please, talk. If you're not sure, talk to one of the other existing infra members first.
Yep, it's that just needs somebody to create a doodle, I guess.
Yep.
Or we could use this time slot next week or any other day. Most other days this time slot works for me, but I know it's awkward for others. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. I can do this with enough notice. So if it was a week or so's notice, well, not even a week. If it was about 2 or 3 days notice, I could probably arrange it.
I think using, like, we now have, I think, 2 times, right? One which is like earlier in the day and one that's later. I think picking one of those two. Rod, does one of those two work better for you versus the other?
I think the other one is I can't remember where it is. I think it might be 10 o'clock at night, which is not terrible. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I think it ended up being not a bad time for me in the evening. And this time's good for me. This time works really well for me.
Okay, so well then, Richard, if you could do this time, and I think Mary's in Pacific, so probably the later time probably would work better.
Yeah, I guess we need to reach out to Mary and find when she's available.
Right. Do you want to take the action to do that? And if so, just schedule a meeting with, I guess, me, Rod, and we could copy the other infra members too.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
See if I can work out how to do that. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, sounds good. Anything else you wanted to talk about on that one, Richard, before we move on?
No, it was just really for awareness in case other people had things to add to the list.
Yeah, but no, that sounds good.
Like Rod said, it's not necessary to fill everything out. before we get the ball.
I think it's good though to have the list, and as you two get onboarded, it's probably a perfect time to add things to the list that we've forgotten and try and capture and document. Like, it's when you've got fresh eyes, it's sometimes the best time to document things.
Yeah, and it could be that maybe some of the things to start with would be some of the more common issues that we're hitting. So I think the most common one we've hit, at least from the outside, seems to be sort of space issues and how to go about sort of solving those. You know, where things like, you know, if we run out of space on the Jenkins host, where that is, and I just not necessarily so much where it is, but, you know, sort of part of it's the access, isn't it? Because I think certain things like that are behind the infra access rather than the test access, which means sometimes we spot problems, and part of it's being available and the other part's access, and then the third part is the competence. Hopefully we'll line all those up and at least then be able to take some load off when things don't quite go according to plan.
Yeah, basically finding a list, like if you have a list in mind like that, Mary has a list of things that you've seen you'd want to do but couldn't. Those would be the perfect things to say, hey, do we have docs? Like, once you have access, do you know what to do, or should we write some docs that explains what you have to do? Because
it's a good question. Don't know yet. I mean, for example, you know, we've announced the security release for next week, so I can be available to do, say, the Jenkins lockdown and anything Jenkins related. But if any of the machines had problems, that's straying into the infra area. You know, if it's just something with Ansible, you know, re-Ansible or reboot for a test machine, that's probably something I could do. But if something else with the infrastructure goes wrong, that's probably more questionable, you know, even with the access at this point in time. But, you know, maybe that is something, you know, once we've been onboarded, that it makes more sense to get more involved with.
Sure.
I was thinking that maybe we should start a Google Doc with this stuff and just start filling it out, and then figure out at some point which bits we can put in the repo, because there'll be some bits that we probably shouldn't like document publicly, but
or need to go into the secrets, like the part that you only get if you've got the infra access.
Exactly. So I can see there are files in infra, but I obviously can't read them yet without the access. So
well, I was looking in there yesterday, and some of the stuff is out of date. Even some of the admin logins documentation is out of date. So even that's not solid.
That's not good, because that's where I go if it's like, oh well, something's broken that I haven't used before. I look in there and find the logins and do what I can.
Yeah, I mean, the credentials are fine. It's just some of the instructions. Like I think the DigitalOcean, it's got the root account login, which maybe it works, but I haven't used that for years. You use our personal account through the team access. Well, at least I do. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we go on current information. But as long as the message is out to the two onboardees that you know, you can have access, but just please be very careful stomping around until you know more, or ask questions before you do stuff. Then it's fine by me. So we can get them both onto email and secrets as well, I think. Just whenever. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, well, so I think it's good to have a bit of a chat, and then we can, like you said, just sort of pick up the pieces, the bits and pieces as we go along.
Yeah. Yep. All good.
Okay. So the next issue was platform requirements for 15.x 2423. I know Ash, you opened that, and I don't know if did you tag it for the agenda as well? I think you did.
Did I? I think I can't remember now.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, did. Okay. Yeah. So this is standard for every version now, just to make sure that we aren't building on anything that's going out of date during the lifespan of 15, which is quite short. So hopefully we should be okay to stay quite stable. But Rod made the point that we should definitely start considering whether we need to update things for 16x and starting them now to save us the headache in the next year.
Yeah, it would be good to plan earlier than later. I haven't heard the V8 team pushing us too much recently, but I noticed that was one of the comments somewhere that we should get some feedback from them as well, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on that front for a good few months. I know that Sam used to mention it a lot, but
they're
the
ones that have pushed us in the past. To like they've always been the cause of urgent upgrades. So we can get on top of that sooner than later. But maybe GCC 6 has got us to where we need to be, and there's no pressure there. Maybe it's as simple as that. But it would be nice to not be surprised, because their problem is that if they want to keep on upgrading V8 during a lifetime of a release, then that's when it gets in trouble, because then they want to add features that are not supported by the compiler. And we have had a number of occasions where they've had to either not be able to upgrade, or they've had to actually change V8 code to make it support the older compiler.
Yep.
So if they want to do that, that's on them. Yeah, but it seems like we've pinged them. Maybe it's not as an active team as it used to be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who is the contact that's been most active recently, but
Targos has always been the one that has been very most helpful.
Yeah, he's not a V8 team member. But I think we could ask him if he's in contact with anybody.
And Anna as well. It's always been helpful. And these are not V8 team members, but they seem to be plugged in to the process.
Yep.
From just anecdotally, I think most of the complaints have been around Windows, and because I think V8 don't use Visual Studio to build on Windows, they use CLang. So that's now coming up in the trying to get the latest V8 working on in Node. Is we're finding issues running on Visual Studio. That I think that's the reason the 8.5 upgrade hasn't landed on Master yet. But I mean that's kind of really in Zhao's area. If they're happy to move Node onto a different compiler, but I mean that would be a Semver major. That wouldn't be an in-release thing. I guess that's the sort of risk as far as the compiler differences between V8 and Node are concerned.
Have we got any feedback on the Windows stuff in that thread yet?
I don't recall. No.
Yeah, we should get that. I don't know if Joel wants to give us some, because I'm always picking him first line, but he seems to be. He's been very busy with other things. I know he's got scheduled days that he does no work, but I wonder if there's someone better that he wants to nominate to be a point of contact for this stuff.
Yeah, I haven't come across anybody in any other discussions. But
well, he's got Bartosz, I think his name is. He's got at least one other person on his team that's active. And they've got a contractual arrangement with Microsoft to do the support, so there should be someone, even if it's not him.
Yep. Okay, so I don't know, Ashley, do you want to try and ping Targos and Zhao just as next steps on this one? It sounds like we're kind of in agreement. 15 is probably fine the way it is, but let's figure out the story for 16.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, and if Targos doesn't have any ideas for who at Google, we should touch base with them. I'm sure we can figure it out, but I just don't have a name off the top of my head. Okay, I take quick notes here. Okay, and then the last thing on the agenda, request to join at Node.js Build Infra. I think that's really related to the onboarding, so I don't think there's anything new to cover there, right? It's not. The only one I might mention is, let me find the issue. Where is it? DMARC. I was just going to mention the DMARC one. You know, it's been suggested we should turn DMARC on, and I think the plan is that I'll go ahead and do that. There, I think, you know, I don't know if you'd have probably a new update since you've maybe had a chance to look, Rod, as I did follow up with Brian, and it sounds like at some point we had some G Suite accounts which were used to, you know, people could use to send emails from the nodejs.org domain, but that's the only thing he could come up with, and we really don't think that too many people are using that anymore. So my plan is kind
of that wouldn't show up in because I didn't really know how to read that input, but it did have linuxfoundation.com, which wouldn't show up on a G Suite mail. So that was my guess, was something to do with the way that's ending. So it was an odd one, but you know, if it breaks and then they find that something breaks that not using them, these things are easily fixable. So
yeah, that's what I figured. Like that's all he came up with, and it's like, let's just go ahead. If it breaks, we'll fix it, because it's not like we think we're going to be massively breaking things. And the ones we do know that we're sending email from, like the IOJS domain, it looks like the SPF records are in place and things should be passing anyway. So.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to turn that on sometime this week, Michael. I guess, Ashley, in terms of the metrics, any update on that one?
Yeah, I had a meeting with Miles to discuss the problems with it, and he suggested to move off of Cloud Functions onto Cloud Run. I have it in there, still hitting a similar issue, but we've got some debugging statements, and I've figured out that the very first read stream is just being closed prematurely, but it's also, in the times it works, it's not being closed at all. So I think it seems to be like the stream is being shared across the each time it's called, and then when the next call comes in, that closes the stream previously, which then causes it to endlessly fail with empty data. So it's been a bit slow because of some internal work stuff. So hopefully should get back on that this week and make some more progress towards it. But all the code is on the PR if anyone wants to have a dig in and have a look.
What is Cloud Run? Is that a plain VM, or
it's
you get something more?
It's a little bit like a VM, but it runs Docker images instead. So local testing is much easier. And I think it's not quite serverless, but it does have a thing where it can kind of shut it down if there's no requests sent to it. But it's now the code now runs as I just chose Express because that was the most familiar one, but we could probably rewrite it. But so it just runs as a server to which you then curl requests to. So I did a /root. So I've got it set up so it's authenticated. So only the service account can send requests to it anyway, which should stop outside people doing it. Yeah, it now works off of the pub sub topic. So whenever a new file is created, that sends a message, which is then picked up and triggers the Cloud Run. But not 100% sure about it. Yeah, it's Docker based, and it seems to just be there as like an instance rather than spinning up a new instance each time.
Well, if it's something that helps us debug more easily, that seems to be one of our biggest problems. So.
No, yeah, the testing locally is much, much easier.
Okay, any other things or topics we should talk about this week?
I just got one it's just a little heads up. The current AX72 machine, which is only being used for libuv, is likely going to be trashed and rebuilt this week because it's in a horrible mess. So we're working with OSU to try and get them to hopefully this time have a build that is much easier for us to replicate when we reproduce new machines later on.
Is there any chance we can get a new one created without, like, before that other one's taken out?
I don't know. I'll have to speak with David, because unfortunately that machine for some reason has a terabyte physical hard drive attached to it, and they need the resource. They just don't have enough, I don't think, at this moment. So they want us off. They want that machine. They want it off that hard drive as soon as possible.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why we would have gotten a terabyte. So.
Yeah, I've been trawling through things, and it just seems that someone just gave it to us.
No, we definitely didn't ask for anything like that.
I do think our AX machines have been provisioned a bit oddly. I think the old 6.1 machines had like, I think had some like 16 cores, which were way more than we could actually run in parallel because we didn't have enough. If you try,
I think, as I remember them, they were more like 5-way machines.
No, I think they reported 16, and the problem we had was if you tried to do that amount of stuff in parallel, we ran out of RAM or something. It's one of the issues with Sitchin where it kept crashing because it was trying to use all of the cores. So we did cap them down to 4 or 5 jobs. But if we just relied on whatever the operating system told us, we were running a ridiculous number of threads that we just couldn't handle.
Okay, anything more on that one, Ashley, or?
Yeah, so the manual instructions we have as well, after discussing with an AX expert, seem to be a bit blasé, and I'm going to try and rework them to make them reduce them as much as possible, try and get it all Ansiblized, and try and reformat all the scripts. So hopefully the process should be more simple and make sense for a change. So it's not, doesn't just require.
For 6.1, we had a lot of manual steps because we couldn't use Ansible for most of the installation, but 7.2 or 7.1 improved that. So if you can cut more out of that, the better.
Yeah, and we've in our discussions with Michael Felt from OSU, he's going to package up a C cache for us, or going to look into that, so we can hopefully get that from Package Manager rather than doing it ourselves.
Okay.
So yeah, hopefully just improvements on that end.
Sounds good. Any other topics people want to get into this time? If not, I know it's quite late for Ashley and Richard, so we might as well close out, and we'll talk to everybody in GitHub and next time.
Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.